Hello, everybody. Let's exit the tube. It is currently the 21st of January, 2025. It is 15:42 Central European Time, and you are listening to the first broadcast? We're not broadcasting. To the first uploaded episode of Season 5 of Exit to Port. And I am, as always, joined by my a little bit older than 5 seasons, Mr. Grumbles the Dwarf.
Hello. I am approximately 5.5 seasons old, perhaps more.
Okay, so now we're gonna have to get into it. How long is a season? Like, how do we define a season? Are we like, is this the whole feet versus centimeters and meters thing? Like, are
1 million.
do we have metric seasons? Do we have imperial seasons? Like, there's
It's better than that. It's immeasurable.
oh, okay. Well, but how can it then be 5.5? We're getting very philosophical very early on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We should back away from that.
Yeah. Although it's going to be inevitable because we're just going to go right out of the gate and say it. Both of us are kind of fuzzy-brained. and like I haven't had my last 2 or 3 days, actually a bit longer, have been absolute stress nightmare, which has reached into the core of my body and wriggled its fingers up my neck and made that awfully stiff and uncomfortable to move around, meaning I also sleep badly and giving me a headache because of all the stress in the world, but we're not going to worry too much about that. And in the editorial meeting, we were both kind of like, oh shoot, it's the 21st already. So we are just going to power through. Part of the reason why we are choosing to power through is, of course, because of our patrons. Patreon.com/exit2port, like Maringana, Finn McCorvus, Mr. Motto, and Tilted Head have chosen to do with $2, euros, or pounds per month equivalent. And it is very, very much appreciated because we can then post these to that a week early, let them listen to us completely. Like, we're completely off script today.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we ever have a script, but we have a loose recollection of ideas that we want to talk about. We don't have anything today.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you know what? Thank you for listening to... No. That would be a curveball, huh? No, we are going to talk a bit about the usual suspects, of course, but we are going to go completely off book today. There's no guarantee about anything. This is more going to be like, view this kind of like the warm-up episode after the year wrap-up. You know, you get 10 really solid episodes, and then you get kind of 2 lull, let's chill out, and 1 during Christmas and 1 for the start of the year, and then, you know, we head into the thick of it after that. But we're just gonna start out. I forgot to tell you this, by the way, but TiGER has a surprise for Commander Ivanor.
Oh, nice.
So we're gonna have to find a reason to say hello at some point. Why don't we just dive into the deep end with Eco, huh?
Sure.
It is the Dim World RP set up by Bodis, and he has helpers in the way of Stealthhawk, Ayana, and Outlawed.
Mm-hmm.
for those of you who are familiar with those names on Twitch. And the premise has been slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? Like, I already know, but let's hear an official statement from Grumbles the Dwarf on how he feels about this season.
The burning has been slow, and my candles, therefore, are lasting forever. No, I have very much enjoyed it. It has been very enjoyable and immersive for the most part, and very interesting. And I've got a number of observations and things I'm kind of taking away from it, because Eco's been very popular for roleplay with these, late shift seasons and a few other small things to go with them. And this is the first proper season, or first full season from DRP, and it is challenging people to really, deal with that, as it were, deal with that pace and that slow progression. And for the most part, that has resulted in a lot more collaboration and communication between characters, even for players that are less role-play inclined, because you're essentially, to sort of, Tiger can probably explain it better than me for sure, but you're limited in how many stars you can have for your to assign to various skills and professions in the game, and beyond that, technology is released in a controlled fashion via an academy, where it is sort of role played out when technology is being released, and what was needed to be done by the community to all contribute towards that furtherment and those studies. And this kind of two-pronged approach to it has really slowed things down, which I think eco players in general are less familiar with, and maybe some are uncomfortable with. Well, I know some are. But yeah, it's been very positive in terms of what I can observe of people interacting and essentially being forced to collaborate and rely on one another, because you simply just can't do all the things, which has been the way of eco in the past, where people could just, if they really wanted to, and kind of put all the time into it, essentially solo play as well. And that's been refreshing, but it's also presents a lot of challenges. How have you found it, Tiger?
I have absolutely loved this. As someone who doesn't play eco enough, and I'm there for the roleplay. Like, if I wasn't there for the roleplay, but I was there to game the game, I would not have, one, chosen the character I did, or two, chosen the profession I chose to go for. For these simple reasons is the character I'm playing intrinsically has no need for economics. And that removes a big part of what naturally goes on in eco. And two, I chose a bit of a later profession, such as milling. Like, it's not one of those that you can instantly pick up. And that also hampers me, because I'm not getting XP as quickly and everything, So gaming the game is not favorable for that. However, me as a player, I have a natural propensity to go for trade, cooperation. You bring me the stuff, I'll fix it for you. Hey man, you do this, could I have one of those please, and I'll help you out with something else different. That's my natural go about in these sorts of games. Cooperation is the name of the game for me. I love cooperative games. It's not gonna be like, it's a you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of thing. It's not well, if I scratch his back, and then I can get one of those that I can then use to scratch her back, which will then give me one of those. It's not that.
Mm-hmm.
And the very slow trickle of technology
Mm-hmm.
has been so good, because in other seasons I have been so frustrated by seeing you go in and then be super happy to get your steam tank, and the next day people have moved on to fuel and electronics, and I'm like, it just ruins the entire not immersion, but the fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
It ruins the achievement and the enjoyment of you getting to that point and going, yes, now we can do this thing instead of using the hand plow.
Mm-hmm.
And that alone is just, that is something that we can get now. Like I love that progression. I just hope that we actually have players to see that through long enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm loving the roleplay I'm seeing. Like, with the exception of one player, I'm fully enjoying how much in-depth RP I'm seeing. There's a strict rule. No power gaming. There is a rule on the server. There are people that are getting around it by having their societies make sure that they have everything that they need, and so that they stay self-sufficient on that, and they can forge forward together. But they're still being blocked by the fact that the technology is not researched by them. It is, however, researched by the academy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so cool. Like, if I were to set up something similar for a smaller community, I would probably still have it be, okay, we're going to vote on what we go for next. What do we unlock next now? Are we going to go for milling? Are we going to go for, it's going to be one of those. And I love that idea, because then it's the let's get together and figure out how to solve this, instead of someone completely powering through everything. And yeah, no, it's been so good to see, and meeting so many cool people too.
Yep.
And I realize that having a community where you have an eccentric farmer mayor guy who maybe isn't always the easiest to understand, with how he chooses to do things, but he's lovable and quirky and wants to paint everything. An engineer with tendencies to misconstrue everything. A very eager artifact hunter. The most chilled out, but also the strictest building inspector in the world. A robot, and many more. It's not easy meeting us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We certainly are a colorful bunch.
I think, though, I mean, so this is part of my observations as well, or extending that a bit, is I think that and I think it's a good thing, so I'm just going to preface it with that, but I think that we pose a challenge to the server and to the players, because you're right, it's an eclectic kind of eccentric bunch, played by very experienced role players, and who collectively share a sort of fundamental desire to tell a story and have fun with that story, and have that be like the centerpiece of interactions, as opposed to the mechanical sort of game processing and items. And I think that has proven to be a challenge for some of the players, and it's pleasing to see that most of them have been able to step up and sort of interact and collaborate with us on those levels, like because they still have the overarching desire to, you know, progress and do things that they, you know, in the game. But I've observed a couple of people who have, you know, they've turned into the sort of helpful, what's the way to describe it, like people that are helping to fit the pieces of puzzles together, with us probably being the puzzle that changes and shifts every day or two. So I appreciate and very much respect that. I think that for me personally, I've had a couple of struggles with immersion because but I also think that this is something that, you know, I'm still processing. I'm still thinking it through, and we're in the middle of the season, so it's not like a conclusion I've drawn yet. But I definitely have a challenge of my own in terms of, now that I'm surrounded by more capable storytellers than has been the case necessarily in past seasons. It's not a knock on anybody. And I'm not saying that these people can't be creative and do that either. I'm just saying that they, for whatever reasons, were not doing so much of that. I think that it sometimes has left me a little bit wanting for more. I'm always like, okay, this is cool. We've gone these steps. Now here's the next 3 steps we can take and take this even further and enjoy it. And it sticks in my mind, and sometimes I struggle because I'm kind of, it's weird. It's like, I don't know, like the coach that wants the team to really step up and fulfill their potential. I feel a little bit like that. Not that I'm the coach or anybody nominated me for this or whatever, but like just to give it some sort of, you know, real world comparison or whatever. That's a little bit what I feel like, where I want everyone to kind of step up and take it to that next level. And it's so I'm having to sort of you know, be self-aware and coach myself into not letting those frustrations get the better of me, and just, you know, really let myself relax into it and do what I'm doing. So there's you know, so it's interesting, and everybody, you know, myself included, faces various challenges, but I having kind of relaxed on it a little bit and actively worked on that sort of mental side of it for myself. I've been having an absolute blast. Like about a week ago, I was struggling a little bit, and then I just really flipped it to a more relaxed and enjoyable situation over the course of the weekend, and that had a blast, had a really fun time. So I think we're finding, I've realized a little bit where some of the limits are, where, you know, this is as far as we can kind of take this in terms of more immersive storytelling, and I'm happy with that, and I've found that kind of sweet spot, and that's good. I'm still going to want to afterwards, like, think of how could we have got more out of this, or what can we do to develop and build on this going forward. But I'm, you know, quite enjoying the way things have gone so far, and I'm actually taking a lot of enjoyment from just taking half a step back and just looking at how everyone else is enjoying and embracing it, and seeing how people are interacting together, and it's fun to watch.
Citizen, do not be alarmed. You are being observed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just walking around, watching and seeing scenes all over the world, and hearing interactions it's been so much fun. And I've just been blown away by, like, there's a couple of people that I know aren't necessarily super comfortable with roleplay, and they've jumped into the deep end with us. Like you said, people who want to story tell and have fun that way. Like, we're not gaming the game, but we are there to tell the story of Barovia. And watching them kind of go, what have I gotten myself into? Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it. I'm here now. Let's see where this leads. And seeing people relax and starting to lean into it, and see it then bleed over with how they're having conversations with others. Mwah. Chef's kiss. That is such a victory for our little community, you know. For lack of a better term, like, no, not even lack of a better term, it is an accurate term. Barovia in Eco right now is a little community, and I'm here for it. There is only one change I would love to see for us right now, and it's not be in as close of a proximity to other towns, so that we could have more of a okay, this is a large wheat field now. We are going to need everybody's help to till the earth and then sow, and then, you know, have it be a bit more of a collaborative thing. Well, maybe not everybody, but 3 or 4 people instead of it being just one per role. Like, you still have your primary role, but it's such a big task that we kind of need to come together on it. And that is my only kind of change that I would love to see, but it's kind of hard to do now. But yeah,
I think that would be possible, but I probably would suggest doing something like that rather than doing it as a Barovian thing. Maybe we could spearhead it, but I would do it as like a sort of a World Farms, or like, let's get everybody together and do a thing, like find a plot of land that nobody owns and everyone can work it and that kind of thing. That would be that could be quite fun as a big project. I think that's probably the one thing that is I mean, I can't say missing because the academy is there, but I think that and this will probably come out in future seasons, I would imagine, and it'll be part of my feedback, is I don't know about other towns and how much they've interacted with each other, but I feel like we've interacted sporadically with a few different towns on different levels, and some characters like more than others for various different reasons. But the academy was like, it's the perfect tool, if you will, to bring all of the towns together and have them collaborate and work together. And I feel like, and I think this is something that Bodus and the team will probably, well, maybe recognize, maybe they need the feedback, I don't know. I feel like even though it's slow paced, and I think the pace has been good, and you have to do things the way they're doing, almost like something releases every day or whatever. If you don't do that, then I think people will get, you know, itchy feet and wander off kind of stuff. It's already been too slow for some groups I know of, but I think that the counter side to that, in my observation and estimation, is that it being kind of more or less a 24-hour cycle or whatever means that we're sometimes contributing to something and sometimes not. Or maybe a better way of putting it is, when we are contributing to it, things are just proceeding at, you know, random, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning one day, 7 a.m. the next day, 4 in the afternoon another day. And I feel like there isn't enough. I don't feel like all of the towns that are sort of contributing are close knit enough or integrated enough into the academy for it to be. I think intellectually we understand it as a sort of global project and initiatives, but in terms of the level of interactions and everything, it doesn't really feel like that. It feels more like, you know, such and such in such and such town did this thing, and now we have this, and we move forward. And I think that's natural, because if say they come to us and we get like 5 or 6 people in our town going, oh yeah, let's get this done, then the task is done in 2 or 3 hours, and we move on. But like, so I think it's probably good for the academy because they probably have the impression that everyone is working, and factually they are, because they're interacting with all these different communities each time and stuff's happening. Like when you go there and see who's built this building, who's done this building and contributed to this particular task. But I think that what they probably can't see, what I think I observe, is that like I don't even know, I've never met some of the other teams that have interacted, and that's probably just time zones and days when you're on and stuff like that. So it's not a criticism of anybody, but it is an interesting conundrum for the academy, because I would love to know, okay, these people over here contributed to this, and this is how they did it, and what was the story behind those unlocks and everything. How did that help? So, because for example, to take one example, I've just worked on the framework, in air quotes, buildings for the artwork. How, like, people will learn about that when they go there and maybe see it, and they might get it or they might not. But like, how's the story like woven together? And I think it's almost as if the academy needs someone that's a bit of a storyteller that weaves these things together. Like puts a plaque up, like on this day, on the 5th day, this happened with, and this, representatives of this town came here, and this is predominantly a, lumberjacking community or something, and therefore they were in prime position to do this and this, or they weren't, and therefore they had to get help from such and such other town, and by collaborating together they managed to get this done, and that kind of. So I feel like I think that would be something that I would give them as feedback and say, I think it would be worthwhile them centrally, because they're the only ones who have an interaction with everyone.
Yeah.
And they're controlling and releasing the technology. So I think they would benefit from weaving. I think everyone would benefit if there was a story being woven together, so that everyone could look back over a week or two and say, oh wow, look at all these things that happened with all these contributions from these like 5 different towns. And for now, I feel like, well, I know what I did for this one thing for Barovia, and I know these 2 other people helped me, and that's it. So I'm getting little snapshots of the world as opposed to a broader picture and understanding. So, but again, these are not things that I'm, bringing us down in any way. I think these are things that are positive feedback points that we can take for future seasons.
So
get better on.
One thing that I really enjoyed from Stats' summer vacation server was that there was in essence a way to use Discord for these sorts of posts, where you could tell a story that would be available for others to read and understand, so that you don't have to necessarily have the storyteller be there and then. However, I think it would be really cool to utilize the academy as almost a museum. You have guided tours every now and again, and have them be at scheduled points, and have it evolve. Like we have seen the academy evolve. It's simply, you go there one day and there's a new building. You go the next day, that building has further evolved, and you're like, whoa, what's happened here? Is anyone able to tell me about this? And I think that could be really cool to have like this guided tour of it, and like you said, a presentation of who came together and did these things, and why. And it's either gonna have to be through that, or a World Expo, which is almost what the Academy is, but
yeah,
like an actual kind of like the actual World Expo that has happened in Chicago and Paris and so on in the 1800s, where the different nations of the world brought something that is so typically quintessentially of their nation to the World Expo to show to the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think it could be cool to do something like that where you find an island
Mm-hmm.
and you give people a large lot of land to build something Barovian, something Crossroadian, something
Mm-hmm. Ankle biters.
Anchoragian.
Mm-hmm.
They're all Alaskans. And then you put a wall around it so people can't get inside and see it until that day
Mm-hmm.
where by the use of admin powers or whatever you drop them and people are there and they get to walk around and see it and then you have a representative from Barovia speak about the large bear head of Mayor Bear, the glory, and so on. That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be really cool because it's a collaborative project for each and every one, but you also get to learn about the others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would pose a bit of a challenge for some people to kind of find that identity. We're suddenly like, oh shoot, I have to do something roleplay related. What is my purpose here?
Mm-hmm.
Because then suddenly the people that game the game are going to be like, what is my backstory? And you kind of tweak people like that a tiny bit. It's no, I would love to see something like that, which is why, and I'm not sure how many of our viewers, listeners, caught this, but we did have a small RP interaction about having kind of an expo and showing off Barovia with the different elements of who we are, and inviting people, and that kind of comes from what you guys have done in Atlas before, where you have these market stall days, you have these comedy shows, these auctions. There's actual timed events going on, and trying to find good times for that to happen. I think that could be really cool to do in Eco too. And no, it's I'm really enjoying this. That's what I really can take away from this. It's my very, very, very high enjoyment of what is going on. And new of this year is, of course, that there's some sort of eco partner program thing going on, and there's drops, and yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah, they've done a good job.
They have.
It's a good team, and they're very open to feedback, and they've worked hard with us as well, and often had like devs in on the streams and things. So it's cool. Less so I'm noticing this time around, but I know they've been there. I think it's just depending on how many people they've got available and times and stuff. But yeah, it's been good stuff.
It's this is something that I've been craving to be part of, both because of the cooperative nature of the game and how it's been set up, which is absolutely key for this. I want to point that out, because without the slow burn part of it, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much, because then I would have been left behind as a character, as someone. I would have just had no purpose at all. I would have been floating around in the world with nothing but RP. That's it. And sometimes I need a goal to orient my RP towards, just to kind of make it make a bit more sense.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. It's if you go on a purely RP angle, it does put an additional burden for sure, and
we have
it can be
D&D for
quite
that.
taxing. Yeah. Well, exactly. So, but yeah, I think it's been great, and I'm really glad to see those that have both the ones that have stuck with it, having a great time. And I figured this was going to go well, but it's nice to see that coming to be the reality, because for those that do embrace it, because at the end of the day, you're going to have more sentimental attachment to your character and your story of your character, and the development and all the things they're involved in is going to have more meaning, whether you're conscious of that or not, even on a subliminal level. And I think that's what's shining through. And whilst I, empathize with the folks that have dropped out because it's just, they want more of the buzz of getting through the game, or, they feel like they can't contribute or whatever. I totally get that. I know it's been harder for some than others. I've been having a conversation with Cletus in the background, just trying to support him and work through, because he's struggling with it a bit. But a lot of that is because he set his town up with a kind of a regular crew, and they're all used to being able to kind of power on through the game and always have something like mechanical be progressing and something to aim for each day. And you don't have that in this setting. So a lot of them have been like, well, I kind of did my bit and I can't really do anything else now. So maybe I'll come back in a week, or maybe I'll be playing something else. I don't know. And it's not in a bad way or negative thing. It's just that if that's not how you want to play the game and everything, that's cool, But it's meant that he's found himself a bit isolated at times with, and therefore hasn't really wanted to log on, or hasn't enjoyed much when he's been there. And I've given him some advice on that, and how I would go about it. And I said, I think that in a way, Cletus suffers a little bit from people come along and they just think, oh, because he's building some stuff, that's what Cletus does. So they think they're role playing with Cletus, and then they start talking to him as if because he doesn't do any voice or anything like that. And they kind of forego the RP, and then Cletus is obviously being polite and kind, so he's just going with the flow of what people are saying to him. And then he ends up after a couple of hours thinking, I don't know if I even RP'd, or like, what was the story or what. Yeah. So I've kind of given him some pointers and ideas of how I would go about it. I said, you have to be more Jim. What's going on in Jim's head? What's going on in Jim's world? What's so that you're not being Cletus, and if people come and interact with you as Cletus, don't buy into that. React and interact with them as Jim. Well, maybe I said to him, I gave him a silly idea. I was like, maybe Jim's mama's coming to visit Crossroads and wants to see all about what her baby boy's been up to, and you're super excited about it, and you can start talking to people about that. And then if they don't get into it and they're like, oh, that's nice, your mama's coming, okay, but about those 3 boards I needed, if they do that, then you come back at them with another Jim angle, and keep going on about it or something. Oh, I can't do anything like that right now because I'm so excited. I got to go and cook some food for my mama or whatever, and or just try and make a story angle with them, because he's more than capable of doing it as a role player, and he has a lot of fun having that role play, but he's stuck in that trap of kind of being used to, and people consistently approaching him as Cletus and not as his character. So there's definitely challenges there for everybody.
Oh, there is, and I like. I think we're all facing some sort of challenge, because of these limitations. But I'm genuinely trying to seek it out as an opportunity to role play in small and comfortable scenes. And I want to iterate. I said and comfortable for those, because then sometimes I swallow my words. Small and comfortable scenes, as opposed to large groups heading out for something, or just idly standing by just to wait for something. Because several times I've been like, okay, I don't have the materials to do anything. And I don't really have the opportunity to continue on with my workshop or anything right now. So what we're going to do is go seek out the world. Yes, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And then, walk up to someone who's working and just kind of stand there idly and go, woom, woom.
Mm-hmm.
And see how they react.
Yeah.
And I know I'm an awkward character to kind of interact with, because one, it's not a human being that you're kind of, well, you're talking to a human being by all means, but as a character, it is such a wildly different way of reacting, and different language.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you respond to someone saying that, do not be alarmed, you are being observed? It's like, should this alarm me, or are we? And then just kind of seeing people go with the flow on it is so much fun, so much fun. And but I also love the fact that it gives me a free out, in the fact of I need to go recharge, or my scanners tell me that there's something wrong here, I need to leave. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or walking around and people were like, it's like, there was one guy, I think his name is Dusty Stamper. He's the one who is making alien-free food.
I've not met this person. That's funny, though.
He's lovely. I met him one of my first days when I visited the academy, and he was like, "Don't probe me." I'm like, "Well, hold on. Okay, this is something I need to pursue at a different point." But it turns out his backstory is he was once abducted by aliens, and I was walking around, and my sensors told me, there is someone here. Walk up and just kind of stand there, and getting this super awkward conversation with this guy that has a backstory of being abducted by aliens, and not trusting that I'm not alien, and and trying to just have a bit of an RP moment, and it was so fun. It was such a fun scene. But no, I know I'm awkward to play against as the robot. It's a hard character to play too, though. I want to point that out. For those who don't believe me, try acting like a robot and speak like a robot, and not give any emotional reactions or such for a full day. Let's see how you get on. It ain't easy, okay? Because there's no small moments of little giggles. There's no there's no thought pauses that you can actively use like that. It's either you are on or you're not. But one thing that I've loved with that is purposefully ruining idioms and things that people say. I'm going to share a little moment between me and Conrad here, where I explained to him that my character needs food because of the large amounts of work that needs to be done and the setup of the mills and everything. And I was like, oh, okay, I can bring that. And after he had brought it, there was a little conversation. And towards the end of the conversation, we got into, why is there a cannon turret on top of my tower? I explained it was for the defense of Barovia, and it was like, yes, but we're surrounded by friends. Yes, but that should not make us complacent, citizen. I was like, fair. And I guess we have to be prepared. And an army marches on its stomach. And I, being the robot, was like, that is false, citizen. An army marches on its feet. However, in order to be able to use one's feet, one needs fuel. And you heard the pause. And he went, I got nothing.
Very good.
And he was like, I need to leave. Good day to you, citizen. And being allowed to do those, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. I can understand dingus now. But speaking of being a dingus, at some point we're gonna have to play other games. What's like? I think we barely touched on it in December, but do you have anything that you're actively looking forward to in this upcoming year?
I don't know how far it's gonna get in this year, but potentially there might be, I don't know, some sort of, I don't know exactly what stage it's in right now, alpha or beta. I think it's still an alpha. But I'm very intrigued and getting a little bit warmed up to the idea of Anvil Empires, which is from the Foxhole developers.
Ah, right.
But it's set in medieval times, and it's big old medieval, massively multiplayer cooperative PvP kind of or collaborative PvP, where you're gonna do farming, fishing, having villages and settlements and things. Obviously all of the combat and that of marching armies and horseback, and there's farming and all sorts of stuff in it. So that one looks like it could be very, very fun if they manage to get the balance right or whatever. Developer and publisher is Siege Camp, and so I'm very intrigued to see how far along that is. I've heard a few things because we have some community members who've been long-term foxholers and have been playing on some of the alphas or whatever. It apparently needs some more time to cook, but it's getting there. It's some fun. It has a big underground like cavern system and things as well, where you can go into the dark, and there's different dangers and things you'll face down there, and obviously things to mine and treasures to discover and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to have a kind of foxhole-esque style or like that visual camera perspective and all that, but with a very, very different setting and just everything medieval. It looks pretty cool. I've seen like some recent sort of trailer footage from it and everything, and that one I'm definitely excited to see where that goes.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know they were working on something.
Yeah. I can send you a link to some snippets. Actually, Chegg hit me up with it earlier today because he was like, "Oh, this looks like it would be right up your alley," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I know about that." But it was nice to have someone think about it. So definitely one to look out for, and that could be something that people might have an easier time getting into versus Foxhole, which is very drab and it's all about artillery and death all the time. In theory, Anvil Empires could be something similar, but it just visually and everything, it's going to be, I think, more rewarding and probably take a lot of lessons learned on from what they've done with their Foxhole product. So looking forward to seeing that. How about you? What is there a big one or two on your mind?
Gods, I wish. With so much schoolwork and focus on that going on, I haven't really been able to look at new titles even. But one thing that I'm hoping that I could do is to make 2025 the year where I start actually going through my Steam backlog a bit more. Actually play some of the games that I've picked up over the years. Maybe not complete all of them, but at least do a bit more. See the games that I have. But no, there are many projects I want to be part of, but I'm not sure how many I can be part of. But I think the biggest one that is going to be exciting for me is to see more and more from ships at sea. Because they're teasing more and more bigger boats, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what more they will release, and to see the company updates and how missions will work, how progression will work, and yeah, it's one of those where if they get the balance right, then it's going to be a very enjoyable game for me. But I think they need to not necessarily think just sim game, but more of a arcade sim. Like they need to find that good balance, kind of like farming sim, you know.
Yeah,
which is another one where I'd love to get more look at the rice farm at some point, but yeah. Honestly, not sure. I'm not sure. Is that a sign of the times that I'm not really looking at games anymore? I'm just kind of enjoying what I have and what comes along.
I mean, I guess so. I guess it's just a natural progression. I mean, I think that, especially when you've got other time pressures on you.
Yes.
I'm seeing this myself. Is I was just thinking about that in regards to things like role playing and that, and I'm gonna be more choosy rather than just jump on. Oh, here's another thing that pops up. Even if it's something I've done before or something that on paper I should enjoy, I'm going to be just a little bit more choosy and maybe go through a few other like story games and stuff like that in between, just to really recharge the RP batteries and keep it as fresh as possible. There's certain things like eco I'm just always going to want to do. But I'm and I know we have a few irons in the fire with regards to potentially another Atlas season that might come up fairly soon. But I'm gonna be a little bit more selective or protective of my RP energy. Because I really want to see if I can find something where I can, develop more stories. Because I'm even seeing it myself where I'm not necessarily even sort of developing or progressing stories to a level that makes me satisfied with my characters' arcs in settings. And it's like, what something's like stunting it, something's holding me back or whatever. And I'm going to be just a little bit more. I think part of it is just overextending myself and throwing myself at everything that comes along. And maybe it's better to be a little bit more selective. But yeah, should be interesting. As for other games and that, I don't know. I'm the world's worst. I get suddenly there'll be like check out this video full of things, like the link that Chegg sent me. I'm looking through the list there. I'm intrigued by I'm going to be getting into not a new game but Space Engineers, with some stuff there with TC and somebody called Captain Jack, who I don't know very well yet, but I'm getting to know them, and they do a lot of YouTube light RP stuff in Space Engineers. And I know that the Space Engineers 2 was announced. I don't know when it's coming or whatever. There's that. I think also there's a couple of other things. There's Dune Awakening somewhere off on the horizon. Could be interesting. Ashes of Creation, which I haven't really looked at in depth.
So
yeah,
one thing that I know will likely come in 2025 is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
Oh yeah.
I haven't played the first one yet. So we'll see if that happens.
I've played about a sixth of it, and I've seen lots of people picking the first one up again and be like, "Oh, let's do this again so that we're ready." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I maybe could do that too, but when? How?"
Yeah, exactly. Sid Meier's Civilization 7. That's of course going to be one of the big ones that's going to draw some people, but it's not going to be for me. Avowed, is gonna come, which has also been a big title that people have talked about. 2 Point Museum is potentially something that I could enjoy. Because it's gonna be the same kind of thought as 2 Point Hospital, which is it could be good. And I'm not sure if Assassin's Creed Shadow is gonna be my thing. Like I love Assassin's Creed. I love the thought of the story and everything in there, but there's been some Ubisoft shenanigans, even more than before. So I'm kind of like, nah, you know what? Let's just chill out for now. But one game I would love to check out together with you at some point in 2025, even though it's not coming out in 2025, is Sea of Thieves. But do it in the story mode, because I'm not there for the PvP.
Same.
I can't deal with it because people get so griefy, and that's when I get angry and petty, and I don't like being angry and petty in games.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree. The story mode thing sounds like it could be good fun.
Oh, you get less rewards. I don't care. I'm there to play the story.
Yeah. Well, I tried to do that in a duo co-op thing my first real time of playing it. And like within minutes of like logging on and getting a boat ready to go out, the boat we literally hadn't even gone out to sea, and the people just came along and sunk it in the harbor anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, that's completely pointless. It's like we've done nothing. There's no treasure. We haven't even set sail. We just literally set the boat up.
Yeah.
And they just came along and sank it anyway. And it's like, oh, okay.
Hey, hooray for PvP.
Yay.
Like, it feels like it's being shoehorned into so many games. And if you're gonna make a game that is PvP, build the game around the PvP. In that case, don't make a PvE game and then have some PvP element that just disrupts it for those who is there only for the PvE. You know, it's something that the Division did too, because the entire game is based on running around in a city, collecting items, building up, and then you go into the dark zone where everything is suddenly guaranteed PvP, and you've gated you have gated some of the equipment that you could get, that you have to do it through PvP, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
If some of the best PvE gear is from a PvP zone, it's like, no, stop it. Don't do that. Allow me to play the game that you decide is PvE as PvE. Yeah. So yeah, Sea of Thieves. There's probably going to be many other games coming out that I do believe could probably be absolutely fabulous to check out and play. But like we've said so many times, it's the whole time anomaly, where time just kind of suddenly is disappeared, and then we're sitting here in December all over again thinking, where did the year go?
Yep.
So yeah. And then there's my own thoughts of I want to make my own game too, which is hopefully gonna be able to start happening as some sort of hobby. Who knows? We'll see. ADHD brain go burr. But yeah, do you usually do New Year's resolutions, by the way?
No. I'm more of a person, if I've made my mind up to do something, then I'll do it.
Isn't that a New Year's resolution?
Well, it doesn't have to be at New Year. What I don't do is, I don't set myself up in a trap of like, it's the New Year, so I have to come up with a thing that's going to challenge me or annoy me or quite possibly that I'm just going to set myself up to fail anyway. So why put myself under a time pressure? No, if I just get to something where I'm like, okay, there's enough of this, or I need to change this, or whatever. Then I just set my mind to it and do it.
Yeah, I've started leading my own life in a small obtainable goals kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Project management 101. Small obtainable goals. And my first small obtainable goal is the actual finishing of my exam and getting that approved and done, and then maybe being able to actually get a job. That is my goal for 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully also start thinking about being more active. Just moving around, working out a bit. We're not talking, oh, I need to lose X amount of kilos. No, I'm just gonna start exercising a tiny bit here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Just to have more movement. More movement is the goal. That's how simple it is. That's how low scale we're talking that it is for me these days. It's yeah. Because you said a very interesting phrase there with set yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do that. Like they aim too big instantly, and then it's like it's not realizing that the journey is going to be many small iterations of getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you set your goals too low, then you might be like, well, this wasn't fun. I'm never going to do this again. Unless you realize, and then you kind of go, okay, let's up this then. Let's up this. Because then you're into the small obtainable goals.
Yeah, exactly. About, little steps, baby steps, and having things that you can build upon. You can still have a broader goal that's further off. But I'm not a big fan of or I probably just tend to set myself, okay, this monumental goal and be like, I'll do this by the end of this year. And it's not very realistic. So
No.
just trying to be realistic and try to be, I think also as well, be more mindful of both my mental and physical health, and just be conscious of it and adapt and then measure and see how those adaptations are, what's working well for me and what's working not so well for me.
Yeah. No, it's
probably sounds wildly unambitious and miserable to people listening. So who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's because I, did a bunch of things that I'm pretty chuffed with and or feel like are coming from where I felt I came from, or my experience. I thought, well, I won't achieve any of these things, and I didn't overachieve in any kind of extreme way, but just I felt like I did all right, and I don't know. I don't have that desire now to do that all over again or whatever. So it could be a bit of world weariness or whatever as well. I don't know. Maybe I think I'm just waiting for inspiration to hit me and be like, oh, okay, I'll do this. But I certainly am also at the same time conscious that I don't want to waste my time. I want to, I can waste time if it's something that I'm having fun with and I need it to let my brain simmer and cool down. But
is it really wasting time though?
Well, that's what I mean is there's a deliberate choice of saying, okay, I'm going to waste time on this, but I don't want to. I'm also conscious of being self-aware to the point of like, am I actually sort of enjoying what I'm doing right now? Is this what I want to do, or is it worth the energy I'm putting into it?
No, I meant more like I'm gonna have fun with was some of the phrases that you used there, and then right before that you said waste my time with, and I'm thinking, if you're having fun, is it really a waste of time?
Yeah, I think it depends because you can
fair, yeah.
You can lean in a little bit too much into like, well, I like doing this thing, so I'll do 5 hours of that, and then you haven't spent 1 hour doing a thing that would have been beneficial to you, whether it was fun or not, that kind of thing. So it's just about balance, and like most things in life, it's about finding the right balance. So.
And we've mentioned these bigger goals far away. You know what that takes me into?
Mm-hmm.
Conquest and Cataclysm. I'm having so much fun DMing this.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously,
Mm-hmm.
I'm having so much fun because right now I have a large overarching idea, but you guys are doing all the talk and the work. And I'm loving it. And we are going on crazy adventures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's been working very well. I think the group's gelled well, and because you never know, like we all get along, but we're also our own unique characters, as it were, and it doesn't mean that everything just works magically, but it's fitting together pretty well. Obviously, we have the challenge of timing and herding the
Yeah.
cats each time, which is difficult, but you know we're pushing through that as best we can. And I think that what's good, I'm enjoying both the storytelling and the pace that we're going at, and I'm enjoying what each of the different players is putting forward in their characters, and how that's engaging with the audience week for week. It's good to see. Yeah, we still have a few more challenges. Both some of the technology's not always helping us to the fullest extent,
Yeah.
but we're doing well to kind of just play through that, as it were. You're never going to be able to exactly replicate that kind of like everyone's in a room together, but we're getting comfortable around the table together to the point where we'll look back in another 6 months time and think, crikey, remember episode 1, 2, and 3, and look where we are now. And
Yeah.
I think that's good. It's progressing and evolving in the right direction. So, and everybody's having a good time. Everybody is buzzing, and we're all getting to the end of the sessions and being like, damn it, can't be over. But it's good that it is. I think it's the right amount of time, because if you go into 5 and 6 hours and whatever, you start getting a bit weary and miss things, miss details or whatever. And I think it's better the way we're doing it, that everybody's getting a chance to show their, not only their own characters, but to how their characters interact with the world, and most importantly of all, how they're interacting with each other and the NPCs directly around us. I think it's nice, and it's fitting together very well. Nobody's over running roughshod over anyone else, or hogging the limelight or whatever, and which you don't expect that, but it can happen easily when we're all used to being in the spotlight, in our own various ways, and it's nice to be in a group where that's not something that comes across, or that causes any friction.
It's like that's kind of what I say so many times. It's a delight to be the DM of a party of experienced role players. Either the experience through mechanics or roleplay itself, or just in the sense of appearing in an online space together with others.
Mm-hmm.
It is so enjoyable because I've been at tables where people can physically see and reach out and touch each other, where there's been so much crosstalk and shouting matches, and not even remotely as much sharing of the limelight, and understanding that it's a collaborative story, and someone feeling like they're the main character and all the others are just their co-stars. And not even that, they're more like played NPCs, and it's just so discouraging. But being part of this and being allowed to see the world take shape around you guys, that's fun. I'm really enjoying it. I am. So it kind of brings me back to eco a bit, like, because this is a question that I have for role players. How many role players do you think struggle with the thought of am I the main character? And I'm not just talking in eco, I'm not just talking in D&D, like in this entire thing where you have multiple people around you. How many people do you think struggle with the thought of, yeah, I'm the main character, everyone else is here to help me?
Probably quite a significant number. I think it manifests itself in different ways. Some are quite obvious, and then it comes down to their charisma and their ability to weave a fun story. And if they're really good at it, it doesn't matter that they're in the center. And if they're not really good at it, it's glaringly obvious and awkward. And usually ends in failure or immersion break. I think it's hard to be you have to work at it. You have to sort of ask yourself those challenging questions. Am I, interjecting myself too much, too quickly, too often, whatever? Am I trying to force, it's the whole thing of like you put down a piece of role play and then you observe and have to be aware, is anybody picking that up? And if they are, what are they doing with it? And if they're not picking it up, no matter how much you want to put it out there, just don't. You got to let it go. If it's not working, it's not working. And I think that's a learned skill and comes with experience as well. So I'm not surprised that people stumble with it. There are people who are, as far as I can tell, blissfully unaware of how like clumsy they are, where they're just like, me, I'm here now. And it's not because they want to be in the limelight. It's because they want the thing they want.
Yeah.
Oh, I need this table. So, hello, I'm here for my table. And you're like, you're mid funnily enough, I had one on the eco. I won't talk about any specifics because it'll become too obvious perhaps to some people who it was, and it's not in our town. It was two other people from two other towns. So, but we were just in the midst, myself and someone else, of role playing a scene together and supporting each other as characters and weaving a little story, or starting to weave a little story about it. And this other person turned up and just had something that they had made for this town. So they just were like, oh, I'm super excited. I got this thing I made for you. So just like butt straight into the conversation, hey, I got this thing. And then, funnily enough, they kind of realized after about a minute, they were like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me wait until you finished your business with Ivan and blah, blah. But at that point, it was like the two other people who were receiving gifts or whatever had been bamboozled and had the headlights flashed at them or whatever. So they were like, oh, well, no, we've started this now, so we might as well, go with this. And it was, for me, it was kind of like, oh, I mean, I wasn't upset by it because I know the people and I could kind of see it coming. But I was, at the same time, it's like, okay, so that one's a strikeout then. So we were swing and a miss because the little piece of story we were going to build together is now parked. And no matter what you try to do, if you park something that is just starting to get into its flow and you park it up for 2 or 3 minutes while something else happens, that's like, like you wouldn't really do that. Like you were talking about before, if you're around a table or whatever, if that was just a normal real life interaction, it almost certainly wouldn't happen that way. And if it did, there would be some obvious, visualization and all the cues would be there and you'd know why. You'd be like, oh my goodness, you're super excited or whatever. And they'd get the cue from you straight. So it wouldn't be like this awkward 1 or 2 minutes go by and then the thought process kicks in of like, oh, maybe I interrupted there. Maybe I was rude. You would get it instantaneously within like 3 seconds. Because typically people will look at everybody that's just near them and they'll be like, oh, this person is giving me the glare. Like I've just interrupted them or whatever. So it's much harder in role playing in a video game because your avatars can't give you that, you can't give over that expression and everything. So you need people to, step up their awareness of themselves and each other and just basically have a good role playing etiquette. And That one didn't annoy me because I kind of I knew how easily distracted the people were, which is again coming from me is quite rich. But I was like, okay, this is quite likely gonna be an interruption or whatever. But there's other times where like I had one where I had my decision was just like, okay, I'm not in the right frame of mind right now to carry on role playing, so I'll just go and leave these people get on with whatever they're doing because I felt like that other role play scene got so badly trampled on and kicked into the dirt. I was like, well, okay. I was actually like halfway through a scene with somebody and someone else turned up and was like, tra-la-la, this is the thing I need right now. And it was like, really? Okay. So you don't turn up and like, but conversely, maybe flip it around, make it more positive. I've had the exact opposite experience where a couple of times someone's turned up and they've actively, like we've observed them, we've said hello, they've said hello back, and then they've gone and like sat on a park bench and waited for a scene to finish so that they can then come and do their interaction. And I was like, kudos, that is what you need to have. You need to have that level of awareness and etiquette.
Was that the other day when me, you, Stats, and Cringer, we were standing in right in front of Stats' shop, and I think it was one of the Embrasu people came up, stood there, and then sat down on the bench behind us. I noticed that, and I was like, "Oh, this is so good. This is so well done."
Yep, and I've had that from a couple of different players, but Macho Man, he did that very well.
Yeah. I have to apologize profusely though, because I purposefully play my robot just kind of waltzing in and being like, "Commander, I need your assistance," or to whoever I need the assistance of. But I will always, unless I see that, okay, there is more here, I will always play it off like, "Please proceed with your previous business," and then remove myself so that it can actually continue on. Like it is very
funny
clear
thing is
as
though with
kind
your
of an
character
interjection and going, this is it, and I will then remove myself. So the
thing is with your character, it makes sense. Your character, like, or the robot might be programmed with some degree of etiquette or whatever, but the whole point is, like with AI, it's not the same. You can't have the same conversation. You can't have the same. You have an analytical understanding of what and the definition of what etiquette and politeness is, but you don't understand what etiquette and politeness is in terms of experiential learning and everything. So I like the idea that and again, you're doing it correctly the way you're describing it, and that's my observation as well. But it makes sense that the robot, or so it can manifest itself in a couple of different ways. It can either be the interruption because and then the protocol says I shouldn't have interrupted. Here is therefore the analytical apology and stand down, or it could just be standing like awkwardly, like not quite close enough to be in the conversation, but not far enough away to be out of eyesight.
So many times.
So and that then is perfect because that's the robot is like, I am waiting my turn in a queue, but I am standing 7 feet away, which is not what you would normally. Either you approach or you don't approach.
Yeah,
human beings don't typically stand 7 or 8 feet away from each other waiting their turn.
You know what the worst part is? That is me as a human, because I'm like, I don't want to interrupt, but I kind of need people to know that I'm here at the same time. And then I'm kind of like, just gonna wait my turn over here, and then it turns into hours, and then it turns.
I did kind of wonder. I was like, I wonder how Tiger is doing this so consistently, and it sort of occurred to me. I wonder if this is just Tiger. Like, do I interrupt now? Can I interrupt now? What about now?
It is a lot of Tiger kind of sitting there awkwardly, going, how do I politely enough jump in here, because. I'm not certain other people that bursts in the microphone blaring and goes, "Hi, I would like to be part of this conversation too." But no, there's a weird mix between me and the robot, and I like the more I'm learning about my own brain, the more I'm understanding that I may be letting out my full-on neurodivergent brain live out in the robot right now. That might be it, and I'm kind of loving it, but it's also allowing me that opportunity of observing others in these scenes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though it's super awkward for them to know that there is a robot kind of standing there and just kind of looking at them and listening to them, but not really paying them any attention. But they're like, how do we go somewhere else? Like, if we have how
Mm-hmm.
do we react to this?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, it's lovely to have that opportunity of walking up to another scene and being a fly on the wall, like seeing that I am indeed not the main character at all. I am part of a very, very, very much larger story where I only know tiny tidbits. And I think that's really cool. I think most people are good at it in on the eco server, but yeah, it's always so hard to find that balance. I think that comes with experience as a role player. To come to that point of realization that the world is bigger than me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And which is why whenever someone asks what is D&D and what is roleplay, it's and more I'm using the choice of saying collaborative storytelling.
Yep.
So it's a whole lot of
Exactly.
yes and not and then you do this. Like, no, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. You know?
I think it's one of those things like if we were giving like a here's here's 10 steps to getting started, or here's 10 steps to having more fun role playing, or here's your 101. I think that would be on the list. We've probably talked about it in one way or the other a few times here and there, but I think that's quite one of the most important ones. Or like if you had in no particular order, like here's 10 tips, and then none of them is more important than any of the others, perhaps. Or they might be one or the other, but one of them would be as you describe it, just understanding that or that in most cases the very best storytelling comes from the whole, the sum of all the parts.
Mm.
And you might play a small part in it, or a large part, or anywhere in between. But almost always, like there are some exceptions, but they really are exceptions, where somebody is that good that they can monologue through a scene or whatever. But those are, fewer and further between, especially in what we're doing, which is very much sort of amateur dramatics kind of level.
Yeah.
Or not even, no kind of coaching or training in it whatsoever for a lot of people. Understanding that you are, not to diminish or belittle yourself in the sense of like you're a little speck of dust or whatever, but understanding that you're a valid and integral part of a much bigger whole, and acting on that basis, and kind of just being not constantly thinking about that, but just being aware of it, I think is so important, and would give so many role players that a more magical experience all around if they could just recognize or be aware of that. I think but I think people are sometimes, we have different ways of interpreting everything around us in the world, and including in these games and what we're doing in role play, and different things pressing on our minds, and what we think is important versus what someone else thinks is important, and that's what's tricky about it. And I know a lot of people are very anxious or reluctant to try something that's that, or they just think they can't, I can't do this at all or whatever. Often those people turn out to be naturals at it, because because of that anxiety, they're thinking about what's going on around them and how does this fit in. So they bring that additional sort of data to bear in their creativity and how they interact with the world, and that's when you get these magical moments quite often. So I wish people would have that confidence to try, no matter how afraid of it they are. You know, but it's very much easier said than done in some cases, because and I totally empathize with people that feel reluctant to try it, because there's also the possibility to have a bad interaction out there too, although they typically are quite rare. You only need something like that to, if you were already feeling anxious or lacking confidence in it, then a negative interaction would only hammer home and reinforce that feeling of like, oh, this isn't for me kind of thing. So, but yeah, we've been pretty I wouldn't say lucky. I mean, it is lucky in a way of phrasing it, but it's, I think, by design with the setting and everything. And then I think people have embraced it and understood what we're going for. So yeah, it's been good fun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mm.
And
It's certainly given me some smiles.
I was just gonna segue into it.
But there was a pause, and I was like, "Oh, maybe he doesn't have a segue. I'll do it." So I didn't read the cue.
No.
No.
It just shows how kind of like on track and on board we both are, and it shows that after 5 seasons of podcasting together, but also so many years of playing games together now. Mm-hmm. and hanging out, that we are indeed on we vibe like it. This is good vibes. Like when I hear you use the term good vibes, this is kind of what's going on in my head. It's not necessarily always a party and bananas and confetti everywhere, that's not necessarily it. For me, good vibes is often that good conversation, and that sharing of space in a good, constructive way. And yeah, like, without making myself too emotional, I truly do appreciate this so much. Like the conversations and the hours that we spend together like this. It's yeah. I think I side quested myself off that segue. I'm sorry. Should we do it again?
That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
No, it's too late now. People will know. They'll sense it, even if we edited it out.
There are very few things that have ever been edited out of this podcast. It's usually if someone has had a phone call or had to go pee, or...
Oh, don't forget the popping mic one.
Yeah, well, that wasn't necessarily so much edit out, but more how do we remove the pops?
Yeah.
But no, like the most extensive edit I've ever done was the first time we had stats on, where I had to go in and do micro cuts in the little breaks to make sure that everything fit within our 3-hour window.
Yeah, damn it, stats.
And even then, by utilizing AI to actually find all of those little moments, it was barely enough. Like,
who would have thought the three of us could prattle on for hours?
So strange, huh? So strange. But yes, smiles. There's going to be plenty of them in 2025, I think. But let's hear it for what has made us smile this time. Do you want to start, or should I start?
I'll start, because it's kind of a continuation of some of the earlier conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm not really going to cheat a bit, but maybe a little bit. But I'm kind of...
There seems to be a theme.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I need to really be more decisive. But anyway,
don't worry about it.
New Year's resolution. Oh wait, I don't do those. Essentially, it was going to be, and it still largely is. Let's make it 69%. It's how much enjoyment I'm getting from the TigerDen AI robot character in the eco setting. But I'm going to broaden it out slightly, and give a nod to Stats and TC and Lima and others, all of our crew really, and the late joiners, everybody, because they've all settled in and gelled so very well together, and they're all, as you said before, it's quite this eclectic, like, crazy bunch that are just if you wrote it all down on paper, you'd be like, what is this nonsense?
Yeah.
How can you make this? Is not one story. There's like 10 stories happening at once, but
Exactly.
somehow it works. And it's just given me so much to smile about. But again, I do want to reiterate that the most enjoyment I've had, and this is not to take anything away from some of the shining moments like the museum and guided store that Lima did for us on Sunday, and Stats's bomb range,
Yes.
which was very special, and a bunch of others as well that I'm not even listing. But in particular, your character and the way you've portrayed your character and the way the RP community. So there's also a big kudos to the RP community on playing on DRP. The vast majority that I've seen, I won't have seen everything, of course, but I've seen many different people with different characters having each their own different take and interaction and behavioral sort of pattern with the robot. Some were reluctant but warmed up to it. Some are a bit standoffish. Some are actually nobody is doing the one thing I was worried that would happen, where people are just like, it's just a guy with a strange voice. I haven't seen one single person do that yet, which is great, because that's a big risk when you play that kind of a character, that people will just be dismissive and like, whatever, that doesn't really exist, you know. And I haven't seen one single person do that in a way that's outright dismissive. And possibly my two favorite things, apart from all the scenes and the interactions that I've observed directly, but my two favorite things are hearing so many different characters talk about the robot to Ivan and in the context of Barovia and whatever, and then the way that they relay that back when you're not there and it's a completely different time and you know whatever. But the fact that that's coming back to Ivan in character is really pleasing. And the other was one of my favorite moments was when we were out on the boats the other day investigating the water, and somebody came the other direction and they were clearly afraid of the robot.
Yes.
And they were just like, no, and just sailed off like, no. And Ivan's like, hello? Who are nice day, nice to meet. And they're like, no.
Not having this. No.
No. Yeah, exactly. And just sailed off. And I was like, that's good. Because that wasn't just like a person, that wasn't any dismissive. That was actually leaning into the role play and their character having this terror of of an AI robot thing. So but all round my something to smile about it for this month has been without a doubt seeing you embrace it and lean into that character and see how that has fit into the world and how everybody has responded to it has been top notch.
I like it. That means so much to me because I know that I take a bit of risk with playing that as a character, and jumping in to both feet first like that is hard. But being so well received and in such a big spectrum of ways, it means so much to me. It does. So yeah, no, I hearing that people actually come back to Yvonne with stories of Tiger is that means a lot to me, because I don't know if you've ever heard it, but I do introduce myself as Tactical Information Gathering Ecological Robot. You may call me TIGER or Tiger. I am in direct command of Commander Ivan Ivanovar of Barovia. You know, that whole shtick comes out, and they're like, Barovia? Who are you? What is? And then there's a whole thing of kind of introducing what Barovia is. So the fact that it actually comes back, people are sticking with it and remembering it. I'm super happy about it. Like it's not just because I was really afraid that people were gonna go, oh, this is a cop out. This is making it easy.
Yeah. You've made a memorable character and embedded the AI into everybody's experience that you've sort of touched upon. And as I said, that's why get complimented, nerd.
Yeah, I'm very much going to accept it. I'm very much going to accept it. So thank you for that. And I'm gonna make things about me. So I could go on and gush about how much the Eco RP has made me smile, by all means. But I'm gonna make this a slightly little victory too, you see. And everybody who's been following us for the last 2 years knows that I've been working hard on my studies. I've been working hard to kind of reach a point in my studies where things are starting to make sense, and it's taken me time. It's taken me so much time, in fact, like instead of going for 1 year, where I normally would be done within 1 year of studies, I had to go for 2 years. And that means that some of the financial support that I would be getting would normally stop after 2 years. And since we started a bit earlier, before I started my actual studies, that should have stopped now in January. Yesterday, however, I got a call from the local municipality and them saying that because of how I've been as a customer, for lack of a better word, and the need to see this through, and that I've been communicative and I've been open about my challenges and everything, they are extending it out April.
Oh, nice.
And even then, we're gonna have a touch of base in March to see, okay, am I in a place of getting a job and so on, you know. And that put a bit of a smile on my face, because that it's that affirmation of the work that I'm putting in is doing good work.
Yeah, it's good. It's awesome that they're taking it seriously and giving you that extra time. Fantastic.
It's, I mean, you know me. I'm not the one to pat my own back at any given moment. But I think finally starting to acknowledge that, yes, the hard work I am doing is yeah, and kind of being allowed to be proud of it. It's important, and this should be a lesson to everybody out there who's kind of in the same shoes. You are allowed to be proud of your achievements, and I think a lot of people will struggle and recognize themselves in this, and in that we do not allow ourselves to be proud of what we do, because we're always measuring ourselves to others. We're always measuring ourselves to the standard of some guy on TV telling you that you must be this tall or this wide or this tiny, you know, whatever. If you allow everybody else to set your standards, then they're not your standards. Be proud of who you are. You're allowed to do it, and you should keep on doing how you do things. That's how simple it is, right?
Absolutely.
And that's going to be
trust
how
in
we...
yourself.
Yeah?
Be honest with yourself.
Yes. Trust in yourself and be honest with yourself. I think honesty is probably one of the bigger things, you know, because it requires introspection and going into myself and saying, are things really going well? And that's scary. That's always scary. But let that be the goal for 2025, maybe, huh? the self-evaluation and work, and through small iterations. One of my favorite YouTubers usually says, "Do one thing today that makes you better tomorrow." It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be that you conquer everything. No. We're talking, oh, I learned a new word today that is actually going to be useful at some point in the future. Cool. Is that word in a different language? No, it doesn't have to be. That's how simple it is. And that's where we're going to leave this episode, I think.
Mm-hmm.
With the wisdom of aging. I don't know where I'm going with this. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a better itinerary for the next episode. And this is going to be your reminder for anyone out there that for $2 or equivalent, you can be supporting this patron or this podcast through Patreon. And in doing so, you are ensured to, 1, get the episode as early as it is possibly ready. 2, you will always be able to get your comment or question in if you have one. And 3, I just had an idea for Patreon exclusive content, but in order to figure out what that is, we're going to have to drop that on Patreon. Even Grumbles doesn't know. I literally figured out in the middle of us talking in the middle of this episode. So there's that. But without further ado, it's going to be goodbye from me and a goodbye from Grumbles.
Goodbye.
And we'll exit the porch in the next. Goodbye.